Thank you for joining us for Couch and Court Issues. My name is Carla, and I'm a therapist. And here's Mark, my husband and family law attorney. We're both excited about being here and glad you've joined us for Couch and Court Issues, where we talk about real-life problems that impact the family.
Hello, this is our concluding series of issues impacting the Golden Rule. In Matthew 7:12, it says, "In everything, treat others as you would want them to treat you." During our series, we have talked about bullying, child abuse, and elder abuse. Today, we're going to discuss domestic violence after we finish our conversation on elder abuse, which is now front-page news across America as a result of the 87-year-old California woman who recently died after the nurse refused to do CPR. This was shocking. Carla, what are your thoughts about that?
When you first shared that with me yesterday, I was just, I was so upset. And then when you told me more about it was when she was eating and she actually choked off her food. Oh man, can we all relate to eating and choking off our food? And the fact that there was someone capable and qualified to do something about it and didn't.
What's shocking about this, we have a Good Samaritan law in California where you don't have to be afraid of being sued if you act reasonably. As long as it's not grossly negligent, you should have nothing to fear. But unfortunately, it didn't happen here.
You said nothing to fear. I think what hit me the most is it's easy to look at someone else, but just looking at myself, I said, this person chose fear over faith. How many times do we do that? How many times we choose fear? Fear of whatever the situation. In this case, maybe fear of a lawsuit, fear of getting fired, fear of not following the policy, fear of maybe cracking her rib, fear of the consequences of the legal ramifications of that, as opposed to faith that God is in control and God has our back and it's always best to do the next right thing. I look in the section we had on bullying and we talked about bystanders, where I said a lot of Christian kids are bystanders. They didn't do it. They didn't cause it. They wasn't a part of it, but they observed it. And the reason they sat and observed it because they had fear of speaking out, fear of calling someone else and getting a report. It just went to my heart. It thought, well, when do I choose fear over faith? It was just pretty sad on my terms. It was sad for everyone. It was sad for the family, the home, the other people that were there. And I just want to pray for all of them and everyone involved in the pain that caused. We pray for the words to say. Let our words be a blessing to all who listen, that as a result of this show, listeners will gain an increased awareness of the faces of elder abuse and domestic violence. That together as a community, we can offer support for those impacted by elder abuse and domestic violence.
In part 1 of elder abuse, we talked about 4 types of elder abuse: physical, emotional, neglect, and financial abuse. Elder abuse is one of the least discussed topics. Unfortunately, millions of elders fall at least victim to one of the types. Sadly, according to Focus on the Family, approximately 90% of abusers are family members.
You said it, Mark. Sadly, that is true. There are many factors that play into the high rates of elder abuse. One of them may be because we do not always know what to look for when it comes to elder abuse. Some of the common signs of elder abuse are unexplained signs of injury, such as bruises, welts, or scars, fear, withdrawal, or depression by the elder, unusual weight loss, malnutrition, and unsanitary living conditions, significant withdrawals from the elder's account, or suspicious changes in financial and legal documents. Many times we see and hear of situations that we do not feel okay with. We may not think it's significant enough to respond. Now, I want to challenge us all to check it out. Meaning pray about it. Talk it out with someone you respect their opinions. In other words, it's a way to just obtain a perspective, to get a healthy perspective on it.
Carla, that's some good advice. If elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation is taking place, remember, call Adult Protective Services or 911. It is the responsibility of Adult Protective Services to investigate elder abuse cases, intervene, and offer services and advice. If you are concerned and do not feel the person is in danger, you could possibly reach out by being a listening ear. Ask the caregiver how you may be a supportive person and assist in meeting some basic needs for the family. Carla, can you talk about the risk factors of caregivers?
Definitely. And as we move on to this and talk about the risk factors and more things when it comes to the elderly, we in no way want to group everyone in one category, because we know that there are many non-professional caregivers, spouses, adult children, relatives, and friends that find taking care of an elderly to be a satisfying and enriching responsibility. However, the stress of elder care can lead to mental and physical health problems, resulting in caregiver burnout. Caregivers may become impatient, losing control, and lashing out against elders in their care. Risk factors for elder abuse are the inability to cope with stress, depression, which is common among caregivers, lack of support from other potential caregivers, and as always, some type of addiction, whether it's alcohol, substance abuse, or any other addiction. There is no one profile of a person who is most likely to abuse the elderly. It is not who a perpetrator is. It has nothing to do with who that person is. Let me make that clear. It is what they have done or have not done. Given enough risk factors and not enough support and accountability will increase the likelihood of committing abuse. Mark, who is required to report elder abuse?
Carla, a person who is responsible with or without pay for taking care of an elder or a dependent adult must report suspected elder abuse. Mandated reporters include healthcare providers, police officers, clergy, therapists, and financial institutions. Notaries may be required to report suspected cases of elder abuse if it becomes law this year. This is important because notaries are usually the last person to see an elder sign a document which gives the abuser the potential to exploit the elder.
That's a good point. And what I want to do is spend some time talking about financial abuse because that is just so rampant. And I never considered that when we first began this topic. So I would like to share an example of that, something that we read in the newspaper. It was reported that a 54-year-old live-in caretaker of an 84-year-old woman allegedly took out fraudulent loans in her name, booking her for over $200,000 and putting the elder's home in danger of foreclosure. The live-in caretaker was charged with financial elder abuse, grand theft, identity theft, vehicle theft, fraud, and forgery. Sadly, the live-in was hired through a classified ad, and the elder was not aware the live-in was on probation in another elder case. The live-in took out fraudulent loans on the elder's home and opened bank accounts in her name, using the money to buy and sell cars, even that person's car. Really, really was sad to hear. And if you're a senior listening and elder abuse may sound overwhelming and even scary, please don't worry. God does not give us worry. I just want you to know that if you are in immediate danger, call 911. Your safety comes first, always come first. Adult Protective Services and other senior advocacy groups can be of service to ensure that you receive the assistance and service to ensure your safety and care. Preventing elder abuse begins with education and communication. I can't say communication more. Communication is the key. To be treated with dignity and respect is a basic human right. Senility is not a license for caregivers to ignore an elder person's needs, nor for any of us to remain silent. Listening when people express their pain, needs, and feelings is an act of respect, which all people are entitled. While we are still healthy, this is the time for us to all be proactive and begin estate planning. Mark, how does proper estate planning help prevent elder abuse?
Carla, it's been proven that proper estate planning will help reduce the risk of elder abuse. Another goal of estate planning is to minimize the amount of friction and animosity between family members that may happen if they begin battling over property and money from an inheritance. Through proper estate planning, they will be able to describe what kinds of healthcare decisions they want. He or she will be able to handle their own financial affairs until they become incapacitated. The elder can also name the person who will be authorized to act on their behalf once they are incapable of making decisions on their own.
I've been going in and out of the courthouse with you for 22 years, and I still feel a little fearful. It's not even about me. I feel a little eerie. That being said, Mark, some people may be hesitant when it comes to seeing an attorney. When should a person have their estate planning documents prepared?
Carla, many experts say every person should have their estate planning documents prepared, such as a will, a living trust, a healthcare directive, and a financial power of attorney, early as 45 years of age. Estate planning allows you to have control over the disposition of your property and how you will be cared for based on your values and religious beliefs. Remember, estate documents should be reviewed every 3 to 4 years to make sure they're up to date. Unfortunately, I have seen too many instances when the person waits and they no longer have capacity to update or complete their estate planning documents. Carla, when should a caregiver get involved with the elder's affairs?
This can be uncomfortable for some people. We're talking about changing roles. We're talking about someone who's always been there for us, a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, a loved one, and they've been the one in charge. And now we're switching roles to take that role. That can be uncomfortable. And sometimes what happens when things are uncomfortable, we don't do it, or we're hesitant, or we're just confused and thinking about what to happen. And so most caregivers struggle with knowing how and when to get involved in managing an elder's money and assets. If your elder is displaying signs of dementia or Alzheimer's, he will need to authorize someone to make his financial and healthcare decisions. You may be called to help if your loved one runs into problems with Medicare, needs Medicaid coverage, or is exploited in any way. Mark, financially, what can a person expect to happen when they contact an elder law attorney?
Carla, most elder law attorneys offer a free or reduced consultation fee. The attorney usually asks for a retainer fee, which acts as a down payment to cover the cost of preparation of the requested documents. You will be responsible for any court costs and filing fees. I would caution you about using the so-called do-it-yourself estate planning documents. It can be a very risky venture if not done properly. Self-help estate planning often goes awry, resulting in substantial legal costs to straighten out the estate. Carla, where can a person find more information about elder abuse?
It seems like every site I keep mentioning Focus on the Family because I just think they're a wonderful resource. You could go to the website. They have a lot of information about elder abuse. And I'm going to repeat this name a couple of times so you guys can get it. The California Advocacy for Nursing Home Reform is an excellent resource. The California Advocacy for Nursing Home Reform is an excellent resource for elder abuse information. I also want to encourage people to use the internet. It's a wonderful tool to locate specific resources within your community. And I understand this is new technology and there's a lot of people uncomfortable with that. You can walk into a library. They not only have computers that's free to use, they have wonderful librarians that will assist you in helping you look through things and research things. And I think it's a great resource, the computer. A computer is another way that elderly can not feel so isolated. They could learn how to use a computer and have their own computer, and that could be their connection to the outside world also. Many community centers and churches have activities and support services specifically for seniors. I love Meals on Wheels. It's a great resource for seniors who are disabled and for those who are interested in being support for the elderly through volunteering to deliver a meal, a smile, and kind words to another person. Coming into the home to offer support is always a great resource. Mark, what is the difference between elder abuse and domestic violence?
Carla, domestic violence and elder abuse are not the same. Different laws apply to each of them. Unlike elder abuse, domestic violence is a catch-all term for violence that occurs between people who are married or have a social relationship.
If you've just joined us, please stay with us as we talk about domestic violence. My name is Carla Ambrose, and I'm a therapist, and I'm here with my husband, Mark, who is a family law attorney. Couch and Court issues rose from our desire to help talk about topics that impact the family from a therapist and a legal perspective. Domestic violence is a significant issue in all communities, including the Christian community. Denial runs deep when it comes to domestic violence. In the United States, there are about 1.3 million victims of domestic violence every year. In Sacramento County, more than 10 people a day are filing for restraining orders to protect them from their abusers. 10 people a day. People who once loved them and knew them now are looking for ways to be protected against them. On February 28th, 2013, President Obama signed into law the Violence Against Women Act, which ensures protection to victims of domestic violence. This is one of the few bills that receive strong support from both parties.
Wow, Carla, I really appreciate the fact that we now have a national recognition about the problems with domestic violence. But sadly, many people who are being abused do not see themselves as victims. The abusers do not see themselves as being abusive. People often think of domestic violence as only physical violence. However, domestic violence is also psychological, emotional, sexual, religious, and financial. Domestic violence is about one person in a relationship using a pattern of behaviors to control the other person.
Mark, you just said it. You said it really clear, and that's what gives us a lot of hope. We only have 2 more minutes left. What I want you to know is that same hope that because people don't realize that they are, once they get insight, they can and do change. This isn't something that can't be repaired or fixed. Anyone can be a victim of domestic violence. Victims can be of any age, sex, race, culture, religion, education, employment, or marital status. Although both men and women can be abused, most reported cases of domestic violence are against women. Sadly, children in homes where there is domestic violence are more likely to be abused and or neglected. Even if the child is not physically harmed, the exposure to domestic violence is as devastating for the child as child abuse, often with the same results to the child mentally, emotionally, and physically. Mark, how can the law help if a person is a victim of domestic violence?
Carla, here's what a person should know. If you're in immediate danger, again, call 911. When the police arrive, explain what happened. In both elder abuse and domestic violence cases, the officers can contact the judge and issue an immediate emergency protective order. This legally prohibits the abuser from coming near you or contacting you. You should also seek a restraining order, which can last up to 5 years, and it can be renewed.
Mark, we only have a few more seconds, and when we return next time, he's going to continue on to talk about restraining orders and things like that. I would like to thank you again for joining us for Couch and Court Issues with family law attorney Mark Ambrose and myself, Carla, his wife. Hope to join us again next time.
We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Couch and Court Issues, A Christian Perspective. The information provided by Carla and Mark is not intended to establish a therapist-client or attorney-client relationship. If you have any questions regarding you or your family's legal interests, please call fellow believer, attorney Mark Ambrose at 916-492-9170. This program is sponsored by the law offices of Mark Ambrose.